speak on behalf of the women and men of DCNR this auspicious moment. Proud to be here. And I'm also pleased to say I got to know Doc Goddard in three very important ways. One is that my father, Robert Adams, worked for Goddard. He'd come home from work with Doc Goddard stories all the time. And they were great, wonderful, colorful stories. And so this was this larger than life boss of my father's, and I got to see the work of the department through my father's eyes and travels for years. The second way is that as an active member of the conservation community in the Harrisburg area, even in my early 20s, Doc would make himself accessible to everybody. You'd pick up the phone and call him, stop to see him, stop to get coffee. He'd give you time, he'd give you wisdom, advice, sometimes a little gruff. Didn't agree on everything, but he was always there for you, always willing to share, always willing to give you the time. And the third way is just the way Doc's legacy guides our work today in DCNR. He's very much alive in the hearts and souls of the people of DCNR and work today. A couple of things he'd be really proud of. Our state park system won the Gold Medal Award for park systems in the nation. I want to point out John Norbeck, our state parks director. Wave your hand, John. Our parks are still free to the public. Anybody can show up at a state park in Pennsylvania without paying an entrance fee. He felt strongly about that. We've held on to that legacy. Every administration that takes a look at that, and you can bet come January, February, someone will be taking a look at that. To this day, that park system is free to Pennsylvanians. He'd be proud of the fact that Pennsylvania's forest received the first forest certification, statewide system in the nation. Our state forests were the first statewide system to be certified, and we have that certification today. I'm looking for Dan Devlin, who's here somewhere. Dan, raise your hand. Dan Devlin and Jim Grace are very responsible for that. It's something to be very, very proud of. Doc was a believer in public funding for conservation and recreation. He shepherded through Project 500, Project 70. He was around to help form Project 93, Key 93, Keystone 93. He'd be proud of what Growing Greener 1, Growing Greener 2, and what Renew Growing Greener is going to do for conservation. Or local recreation, state parks, state forests, trails, assets, conservation, water, all that. This legacy of seeking public funding for things that relate to the common good is something that Doc started, and it's in our mindset, it's in the legislature's mindset that will continue on into the future. Perhaps Doc's crowning achievement was the 1955 Oil and Gas Lease Fund. It really makes a lot of sense. Money coming out of leases on state forest land go into recreation, conservation, and flood control. Sadly, with the passage of last year's budget, that money is now diverted in part to the general fund. A portion of it goes to recreation, conservation, and flood control, but the legacy there is that money goes back to the resources owned by all Pennsylvanians that's depleted by that activity. And while that's not the reality right now, that mindset is in our people's hearts and minds. I think we'll get that back. This makes sense. Something is owned by everybody goes back to something that benefits everybody. And I think the fight held today about the severance tax is a case in point, where some of that severance tax should go back to the environment, something that's owned by all Pennsylvanians. Final thought I want to leave you with. Perhaps the one thing that Doc did that's maybe not mentioned as prominently as a park within 25 miles of every people, or the oil and gas lease fund, or the state forest, is that his professionalization of conservation and environmental work. He realized very quickly that staff doing this very tough stewardship and management of something owned by the public needs to be done in a professional manner, free from undue pressure that's political. Doesn't mean he wasn't political. Believe me, he knew how to work politics for the benefit of Pennsylvanians. He had the public interest at heart, but he knew how to do politics. But he felt strongly that the workers in the conservation and environmental agencies should not be exposed directly to that. So he was responsible for professionalizing the workforce that to this day is in this Rachel Carson building. And so I think one of the lasting legacies that all of us will feel when we walk by this marker is just look at that and think, we're here today and able to do our work